Welcome to the Human Dignity by Design podcast, where we explore tech law in context and discuss how law and technology can and should be designed to respect human dignity. My name is Jan Trzaskowski, and I'm here to share research, thoughts, and ideas on tech law and policy, including the role of fundamental human rights as guiding principles in business and beyond. The first 12 episodes of this podcast are an audiobook version of my 2021 book, Your Privacy is Important to Us, which explores how to restore human dignity in data-driven marketing that relies on artificial intelligence. In this episode, you will hear the second chapter of the book, which explores data-driven business models with a focus on value extraction, behavior modification, artificial intelligence, and potential harms. Thank you for listening. Chapter 2: Data-driven business models. Data-driven business models come in many shapes and forms and are characterized by having the processing of data as a core element. In this context, we focus on data-driven business models that rely on data for creating revenue in the guise of data-driven marketing. Marketing being the broader concept that includes advertising, as discussed in Chapter 5. In addition to being dependent on the processing of large quantities of personal data, data-driven business models offered to consumers often rely on personalization and the extraction of value from users. Often, data-driven business models comprise two separable products, where at least one product is provided free of charge. These business models exist in both online and offline environments, and usually rely on the monetization of 1. Surveillance, 2. Attention, and 3. Behavior modification by means of personalized marketing, included targeted advertising. The surveillance, attention, and behavior modification capabilities can be made available to third parties, including for both commercial and political purposes. Loyalty and rewards programs are examples of data-driven business models that are offered both offline and online. This service is ancillary to the trader's selling of products, including goods, for instance, grocery shops, and services, for instance, airlines. The service may consist of providing discounts, bonuses, and other benefits to the user. In essence, the program is a marketing technique that connects the consumer more closely to the trader, who may increase revenue and profits by better understanding their consumers, including their behavior, and offering personalized marketing. Social media services and other platforms are typical online examples of data-driven business models. The Bazaar is an offline platform that is not data-driven. Platforms may monetize attention and data in many ways. Here we focus on revenue from personalized marketing, included targeted advertising. The ancillary product is offered to third parties, advertisers, but reasonable arguments can be made for the targeted advertising being the primary product. That is, the user or consumer are the real product being sold to advertisers. 1.1. Personalization and surveillance. Personalization is at the core of many data-driven business models, either because personalization is required for delivering the primary product or because it's a convenient reason to justify the collection of personal data for the ancillary product, such as personalized marketing. For instance, loyalty and rewards programs and social media services justify the collection and use of personal data, which includes surveillance of behavior for one purpose, that subsequently may be used for personalized marketing. A decision to personalize the primary product may thus be driven by a goal of increasing revenue from ancillary services, including data-driven marketing, often framed as enhancing the product or improving the user experience. 1.2. Value extraction and behavior modification. The idea of monetizing attention is far from new, and the idea of the attention economy was introduced in the 1970s by Herbert A. Simon. In an information-rich world, the wealth of information means a dearth of something else, a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes. What information consumes is rather obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. Hence, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention and a need to allocate the attention efficiently among the overabundance of information sources that might consume it. Traders may monetize the attention of its users by displaying advertising. Advertising and other sorts of marketing techniques may be used to further commercial, political, and societal aims. Advertising constitutes a subset of behavior modification techniques that is comprised in the broad concept of marketing. The value of each user is directly proportionate to the amount of exposure. Advertising may be targeted by means of personal data or contextual by making assumptions based on context. Advertising saddles in a forum for horse riders is an example of contextual advertising. Advertising is valuable to the advertiser because it may influence the behavior of the targeted user. The value of an advertisement may be increased by having more detailed information about the user. Advertising saddles to horse riders may be more efficient than targeting motorbike riders. The trader has an economic incentive to increase the number of users, their engagement, and knowledge about individual users. As we will discuss later, personal data coupled with insights from psychology and technology can be used to increase the value of user experiences and increase attention and engagement, including by means of creating addictive behaviors. We use the term behavior modification and influence interchangeably, and understand them to comprise both persuasion and manipulation. We use persuasion as the lawful form of influencing behavior, and manipulation, which includes deception and coercion, as unlawful influencing. The distinction is normative and not always easy to establish, as we discuss in Chapter 5. Other types of value extraction include benefiting from the user's content creation, relationships, anxiety, psychological needs, etc. Some of these aspects are dealt with in Chapter 10. 1.3. Free. Often, data-driven business models rely on products that are offered free of charge, that is, without the consumer having to make a payment. This makes it more likely that consumers will sign up for something like a loyalty program or a social media service. In Chapter 7, we introduce the concept of friction, which is removed when the user does not have to make a payment. Some loyalty programs take the shape of a fee-based subscription service, like Amazon Prime, but nevertheless still rely on surveillance and behavior modification. Other service providers offer paid-for commercial-free versions of their service. 2. Providing access to ourselves and others. We leave traces when we act in social or societal context, whether online or offline. The most significant attributes to the traces we leave when technology is involved are the amount of data points and the often unlimited storage thereof. In addition to the scale, technology also allows for observing behavior in the private sphere, as we discuss further in Chapter 7 and Chapter 10. In contrast to traditional landline telephones, mobile phones are usually personal. With the advent of smart, as in phones, watches, health devices, television, homes, cars, etc., information technology has turned into a massive web of surveillance, tracking, and recording device. Also, the use of cookies and other tracking techniques on the internet has allowed for the tracking of individuals across services, platforms, technologies, etc. By nudging users to access services through apps instead of, for instance, a web browser, the trader may obtain more data and gain more control over the user experience and, possibly, circumvent privacy measures implemented on the browser of the privacy-aware user. Personal data may be deliberately revealed by the user or derived from behavior, including interactions with other people. By means of algorithms, even simple data points may reveal much, as expressed by Jamie Bartlett. Algorithms can take your music preferences or your book preferences and extract from this seemingly innocent information very accurate predictions about your religiosity, leadership, potential, political views, personality, and so on. Whenever we use information technology, we inevitably leave information that is necessary for the communication. But especially for the use of apps, we often provide a plethora of information that is not necessary for the communication. For illustration, when installing Facebook's Messenger app on an iPhone, one can click through to the following explanation of data used for particular purposes. For third-party advertising, purchases, financial info, location, contact info, contacts, user content, search history, browsing history, identifiers, usage data, diagnostics, and other data. By providing access to a number of features, including contacts, the user indirectly gives access to information about third parties they may not be using the service in question. Access to information about others can also be derived from access to information we share about others via platforms and other services. We may also learn about how traders process data by announcements. For instance, in 2017, Google ceased its practices of scanning Gmail messages to sell targeted advertising. And Facebook announced in 2021 that it, as of 19 January 2022, will remove detailed targeting options that relate to topics people may perceive as sensitive, such as options referencing causes, organizations, or public figures that relate to health, race, ethnicity, political affiliation, religion, or sexual orientation. On 9 September 2021, Ray-Ban and Facebook launched smart sunglasses, the Ray-Ban Stories, that resembles the abandoned Google Glass from 2011, that gives you an authentic way to capture photos and videos, share your adventure and listen to music or take phone calls, so you can stay present with friends, family, and the world around you. In the launch video, Mark Zuckerberg emphasizes that Ray-Ban Stories are an important step toward a future when phones are no longer a central part of our lives, and you won't have to choose between interacting with a device or interacting with the world around you. It is argued that the glasses will let people live in the moment and make people's life better, that is, by recording and sharing more data. On 20 April 2021, Apple announced its App Tracking Transparency feature, which allows users to choose what third-party tracking they will tolerate. This may be a long-awaited first step for markets to limit the current pervasive surveillance for marketing purposes. The fix only applies to Apple products, with roughly a quarter of the market. Google's Android platform sits atop almost 3/4 of the market for smartphone operating systems. 2.1. Online and offline. Traders may make efforts to link activities in the online and offline worlds, for instance by offering traceable discounts, using phone numbers as identifiers, and/or involving smartphones in the offline purchase experience. These efforts may also be disguised as benefits for registering products, for instance extra battery, extended warranties, etc., or joining a loyalty rewards program, and as the encouragement to share purchase experiences with the trader, friends, or other people. 3. Artificial intelligence, AI. We use the term artificial intelligence to include the use of big data, algorithms, machine learning, and deep learning. AI systems rely on computer programs that can handle large quantities of data and are designed to achieve or optimize for particular objectives. AI systems are designed to interact with their surroundings, including human beings, by receiving and delivering signals. Data is the raw material used by AI systems to achieve their objectives. With the digitization of our societies, computers have access to vast amounts of data in terms of both scale and scope that may be useful for behavior modification. Correlations can be identified through pattern recognition to develop strategies, including in the guise of algorithms, which can be applied, tested, and refined in the interaction with their surroundings. Causations are important to human intelligence and can be applied to the design of AI systems by humans. AI systems can learn from patterns in observations and feedback from their actions. AI allows for pattern recognition beyond human perception and therefore also includes an element of unpredictability. Breakthroughs in AI have come from cheap parallel computing, big data, and better algorithms, and AI systems are often sufficiently powerful to allow for real-time human-computer interaction, including by means of adaptive algorithms. Even though processing power does not equal intelligence, it does allow to build systems that may pass the Turing test, that is, exhibit behavior indistinguishable from that of a human. In data-driven marketing, AI systems can be used to increase the effectiveness of marketing and allow targeted advertising based on how consumers will behave, what they will buy, and what they will think. Facebook may, for instance, predict future behavior to allow advertisers to target people on the basis of decisions they haven't even made yet, including the identification by means of so-called loyalty predictions, or identify people who are at risk of jumping ship from one brand to a competitor. 3.1. A proxy for understanding people. The overarching idea behind data-driven marketing is that models are trained to recognize and draw inferences from information and behavior that, for instance, may reveal that riders of particular motorbike brands are actually likely to buy horse saddles. The information may be used to predict not only interests and preferences, but also how best to persuade individual consumers, including by building a persuasion profile, as we discuss in Chapter 7. From big data analysis of personal data, it is possible to obtain knowledge about how people are likely to behave, thus providing traders with more precise information regarding certain aspects of the individual's preferences and expected behavior. Such analysis may reveal correlations that are not likely to be discovered through mere logic. Actual causation are not necessarily important as long as the correlation in probabilistic terms provides sufficient insights to influence individuals. In the 1960s, privacy concerns also revolved around the use of personality tests and other means to invade psychological privacy. It seems fair to assume that the current framework of pervasive surveillance is akin to an automated real-time personality test at unprecedented scope and scale. The surveillance is likely to expand with new innovative technologies to record and share experiences, measure biological states, and actually brain-to-text communication that we may voluntarily adopt to improve skills and personal efficiency. There is likely a need for more popular conversations about these issues as discussed in Chapter 12. The following analysis aim to suggest how marketing law and data protection law can be interpreted in light of fundamental rights to mitigate harms from predatory data-driven business models. 4. Harms from attention extraction and behavior modification. The Center for Humane Technology has identified and published the following harms from the extractive attention economy relying on persuasive technology. 1. Digital addiction. Digital slot machines occupy more and more space in our lives. 2. Mental health. We constantly face a battle for our attention, social comparison, and bullying. 3. Breakdown of truth. It's become harder than ever to separate fact from fiction. 4. Polarization. Stronger ideological rifts make compromise and cooperation more difficult. 5. Political manipulation. Creating discord through cyber warfare is far more cost-effective than military action. 6. Superficiality. A social system built on likes and share prioritizes shallowness over depth. We will revisit these issues in Chapter 10 and Chapter 12. In this vein, it could be appropriate to include the following quotation from the European Data Protection Supervisor. The digital single market cannot uncritically import the data-driven technologies and business models. The Internet has evolved in a way that surveillance, that is tracking people's behavior, is considered as the indispensable revenue model for some of the most successful companies. This development calls for critical assessment and search for other options. The European Data Protection Supervisor is the European Union's independent data protection authority. Its general mission includes advising EU institutions and bodies on all matters relating to the processing of personal data, including being consulted by the European Commission on proposals for legislation, etc., as well as intervening before the Court of Justice of the European Union to provide expert advice on interpreting data protection law. The importance of the regulation of data-driven business models can also be illustrated by the US Federal Trade Commission's settlement with Facebook, resolving charges that Facebook deceived consumers by telling them they could keep their information on Facebook private and then repeatedly allowing it to be shared and made public. In July 2019, a violation of this settlement led to a $5 billion penalty and significant requirements to boost accountability and transparency. More recently, the European Parliament has, in the context of the proposed Digital Services Act, emphasized the need to ensure that what is illegal offline is also illegal online, and encouraged stricter rules on ranking, non-discrimination, understandable explanation of algorithms, and targeted advertising. The latter to favor less intrusive forms of advertising that do not require extensive tracking of user interaction with content. In a society where smart equals surveillance, the area of privacy law is facing a renaissance akin to that of intellectual property rights a few decades ago, when the digitalization of products such as music, movies, etc. took off. This time, it's the citizens, including their behaviors and experiences, that are being digitalized, which calls for consideration of human dignity among other fundamental rights, as explored in Chapter 10. In this chapter, we also take into account Frances Haugen's revelations documented by the Wall Street Journal in their Facebook files. This whistleblowing is a commercial equivalent to Edward Snowden's revelation of government surveillance. It may also compare to revelations about how the tobacco and oil industries knowingly have prioritized profits over public safety by suppressing and disputing evidence of harm. Thank you for joining the Human Dignity by Design podcast, where we explore tech law in context. In the next episode, you can listen to the third chapter of Your Privacy is Important to Us, which is an introduction to law and the regulation of markets. Music for this podcast is composed and performed by Thomas Roed. My name is Jan Trzaskowski.